You're about to deal with forces you can't possibly comprehend.
Welcome to GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, aka the Going North Podcast. I'm your host, best-selling author, and certified self-leadership trainer with the John Maxwell team, Dom Brightman. And this is the podcast where authors from around the world help you realize that success is tangible. Now let's get on with the show. And today on the Highlight Reel Builder for Authors, known as GMP, the Great, Glorious, and Glamorous, it's the Going North Podcast. We got another super special, awesome human for you today, all the way from the land of Down Under, the wonderful world, the wonderful land of Australia. Because my goodness, today's featured best-selling author, not only is she from Australia, she has 30 years in the construction industry, y'all. That's right, 30 years in the construction industry, and she's currently a successful and industry-leading project manager, a director in 2 companies. You heard that right, folks. 2 companies, a qualified coach, keynote speaker, professional mentor, and award-winning entrepreneur. So let's give it up for Ms. BP herself. No, not the gas company, but we're talking about the brilliant and patient Becky Paroz. How you doing today, Becky?
I am fabulous, Dom. Thank you for having me on your show.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Indeed. It's great having you on. That's right. It's always great to feature high-achieving overcomers in the house, a.k.a. the podcast. Yes, indeed. Yes, indeed.
Yes, well, those words certainly apply.
Oh, yeah, that's right, indeed. It applies indeed. So, my goodness, like, at the age of 12, did you see yourself being in the construction industry and eventually becoming an author?
Not at all. It was never in my future in any way. Not even when I started my university degree did I have any clue what was ahead of me career-wise, life-wise, or otherwise, in fact. And, yeah, certainly writing books and being a part of best-selling anthologies was never on the list of things that I even thought I'd try or achieve.
There we go. That's right. So I'm guessing sticking to coconuts and maybe some random trees as a younger one. Was that the original goal?
No, we're not quite that primitive down here in Australia. No, I mean, I never really knew what engineering was. I was good at math. I did tech drawing, which is very unusual for girls, or CAD. So that's what we used to do with pen and paper before CAD drawing came along. For those of us old enough to remember pen and ink. And yes, that's how old I am. So I never really knew. I was just kind of, hey, you could do that. You know, I was after a career that would make me lots of money, kind of get me out of my home situation. And so this was kind of just thrown at me as an option. And I kind of went, well, you know, I didn't want to be a nurse. I didn't see what a business degree would necessarily give me. I was very interested in sciences, but, you know, you don't get into science to make money. You get into science to generally make the world better and hopefully make money. You know, it's kind of not known that there's too many rich scientists out there. So, yeah, so all of that kind of just coalesced into, oh, well, I'm going to give this a crack. And, yeah, fateful kind of day when I met the dean of the university, who kind of took me to one side and said, you know, there's very few women here and you're a forerunner, and no matter what happens, keep it up and stick with it, because in 30 years from now, you're going to be one of the leaders who encourage the industry to open up to females, which, you know, it's a fair bit of pressure when you're 18 and kind of you put the whole like future of womankind on your shoulders. But I suppose in his way, he was trying to be inspiring and encouraging. And I certainly to this day still remember those words of encouragement to stick it out no matter what. And there's been a lot of challenges along the way, because obviously back then in the dark ages, women weren't terribly welcome. You know, it was very much a last bastion of male-dominated areas. And I was told to my face I didn't belong and I wasn't welcome. And, you know, they're not going to change their ways and their girly calendars and all the other things that they did. So I, very quickly learned how to swear like a sailor. or curse like a sailor for those of you following along in America, and rapidly realised that I'd have to be twice as good to be thought of as half as capable. Which fortunately, being a very highly skilled and motivated young female, that wasn't that hard. So yeah, and here we are 30 years later, winning awards and talking about it on stage and encouraging other young women to get in the industry and have a go.
That's what I'm talking about, indeed. So with the schooling and everything else, getting into construction, I'm pretty sure that wasn't even on your radar. So how'd you last for 30 plus years in the construction industry? Because if I'm not mistaken, I think you had chronic pain issues on top of that, right?
I'd only been in the industry. Well, I've been studying for a year, and I also went and started working as a draftsman, draftsperson as they're called today, but certainly draftsman back then. And as I said, that was with pen and paper and ink, and we were only in the very primitive stages of CAD. So some of the design work would be done on CAD, but then it was printed on big A1, and then we, physically have to ink in the rest of the design. So after about a year of that, I was diagnosed with rheumatoid arthritis, which has a massive impact on joints. And so therefore had a massive impact on my capability of holding pens with finesse and drawing fine lines and doing all the things that I was doing. And it's interesting you ask how I stuck it out for 30 years. I think it was just sheer cussedness, just refusal to give in to people going, you don't belong here. You're not one of us. You're never going to fit in. You're never going to make it. I'm just, sheer bloody mindedness to go, well, I'm going to prove you wrong because I can and I will and I have. And you're doing that with the chronic illness and the rheumatoid arthritis has certainly added to the complication. But in some ways, it's probably also added to my motivation, because when I first got diagnosed with that, in addition to all the messages I was getting about not belonging in the industry, I then got a lot of feedback, I'll call it, about, giving up and changing careers and doing something different and making life easy, and kind of basically the messages would, kind of check out. Forget aspirations, just learn to exist. And turns out I'm not really wired that way. I kind of, I suppose I do have that engineering brain where of like, well, if I'm just going to exist, what's the point? There's nothing to look forward to. There's no achievements to be sought after. Kind of pointless. So kind of went all in. And so that was a really big decision point around that I suppose every time the going got tough, this chick just got tougher and just refused to let it beat me. So, yeah, just kept going. And every day was something new, and every day was, painful to live through potentially. But at the end of the day, I kind of realised that if the pain's always going to be there, then the life you build around and with that pain is what's actually going to keep you going and keep you engaged and keep you checked into life. So I learned to, really compartmentalize that pain and kind of go, well, it's always there. So no point in complaining about it, no point in whinging about it, just learn to exist with that and still strive for the life that I wanted. And here I am kind of still defying the doctors and not listening to their advice. I can take the medication, that sort of stuff, but the doctors tend to be very gloomy, particularly with the rheumatoid arthritis, the lifestyle kind of disease, because they don't know, because everything changes on the person. It's a very particular bespoke disease that manifests in a certain way, but then has activity that can't be predicted and changes person to person. So they tend to give you the worst case scenario, which is wise in some ways, so you kind of know what you're in for and can plan for it, but is quite pessimistic in other ways, because if you take it too far on board, you can really limit your potential by buying into that story that it's going to be too hard to do anything. And I'm, still walking and talking and proving that it's hard, sure, but it's not impossible.
Oh yeah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. That's right indeed. So I'm guessing, even though resilience is probably a superpower, I guess stubbornness is part of your resilience.
Oh, absolutely. I think, well, stubbornness was what got me through to resilience. Stubbornness is the first part, I suppose, of resilience in not giving up and not giving in. Resilience is when you learn to actually deal with it and kind of learn to integrate and accept some of the things that happen to you and that you can't change them. Stubbornness is, that first step. So it got me through that part of life before I could then start to embrace resilience. Yeah, but definitely two keywords used in reference to my character quite a bit.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Indeed, that's what I'm talking about. Indeed. So, my goodness, so with all these wonderful awards you've accumulated over the years and still accumulating, like, what's next for you two? Because it feels like you just keep racking them up, and it's like, hey, you're probably going to run out of house space, right?
That hasn't mentioned, and we're building a separate house for the awards. So, at some point I'll probably stop and leave some awards for other people. It's always nice to share. No, I kind of go, once I've won an award, I don't feel the need to kind of repeat it every year. I think that's, that might be a process for some people, but I don't need to. I've won it once. I've proven I can do it. I've proven I'm worthy of it. That's kind of cool for me. It's interesting you ask what's next, because with all the messaging from doctors, I kind of wasn't expecting to have a life past 40. They sort of told me that side effects from medication and complications with the disease and all that sort of thing, like, don't plan for a long life. So I kind of crammed everything in before 40, kind of going, right, okay, bucket list done, just in case I pop off. I've achieved a lot and feel satisfied with a 40-year lifespan. And I kind of got to 40, and I was in America, actually. Went to Vegas for my 40th to kind of really have a party. And kind of sitting there going, well, doesn't look like I'm going to pop off anytime soon. I'm feeling healthy. I'm doing well. I'm kind of not showing, I'm still walking when that wasn't something I was supposed to still be able to do. What's next, And I kind of realized I had to make up a whole new bucket list, because I checked so many things off the bucket list. I was like, well, damn, I don't really have any big goals. I kind of got to where I wanted to in my career and all that sort of stuff. So now I'm kind of not as attached to the bucket list. I kind of have some grand ideas I'd love to achieve. Travel's one of them, but I think that'll be a little bit longer before we're all heading around the world again like we once were able to. So writing is definitely something I've come to discover a passion for. Nonfiction writing for magazines. I contribute to several magazines here in Oz. I've written a couple of non-fiction books. I've written for anthologies. And I suppose my next driving sort of passion and goal is to write a fiction series. I'd love to write a fiction series set in the construction world, possibly with a female protagonist, because they do say write what you know. And I've got plenty of stories. In like 30 years, I've got plenty of fodder for all sorts of shenanigans to be written into stories. So I'm kind of toying with perhaps a murder mystery, so I can have fun with some, concrete boots and things like that. I'm thinking about maybe basing it in the future, so I can do some fun stuff with technology that's not necessarily possible today. Yeah, so I'm kind of working in that space at the moment to see what I can create, and if I have the power to drag a good quality fiction story or two or three or more out of me over the next couple of years. That's my goal. If I really want a stretch goal, I'd love Quentin Tarantino, especially if he's listening, to actually take this on and produce the movie or the series that goes with it. So I think that's my stretch goal.
Me likey indeed. That's what I'm talking about indeed. It's a whole fiction novel series, construction, female construction worker. That's right, it's a gun show. That's right, 8-pack abs. That's right, the guns. That's right indeed. Sledgehammers all day. Schematics all day. Technology all day. And to be honest, it seems like he can do it, because, hey, you got a creative mind with an engineering mind. How are you able to balance the two? Because you penned quite a few books yourself already in the non-fiction space. I know it can be a big difference from fiction to non-fiction from the outside, looking in as a reader and talking to past hosts. So what will probably be the biggest thing that's helped you really take that wonderful mind you have from an engineering space all the way to the creative space? Because you've written books before.
I have. I think it was the realization that even though I've been in that practical space of engineering and project management, I have been a technical writer for all of that time. We write project plans, and I've got a bench, and I've written procedures and procedural documentation and compliance, safety documents, quality assurance documents. I've been writing that whole time in my career. So the technical element of crafting something that's easy to understand, easy to follow, taking jargon and putting it into simple languages, I've got that skill. And that's not a skill I recognized until I started actually writing outside of the industry and embracing that sort of creative element. So the two of those things combined, it's probably why I call it my new addiction, because it's quite freeing. I often joke, like I've written project management progress reports for 30 years, so I am adept at creating fiction. And that's a bit of an engineering joke, in that we're always trying to tell a client everything's going really well, sometimes when it's not necessarily. But you're right, in nonfiction and fiction, it's a vastly different way of thinking. So I'm doing a bit of learning about the craft. I'm doing some courses and kind of just letting all the ideals kind of bubble. I've got a bit of a structure, but I'm kind of really trying to build that momentum for me. So when I start, I just kind of dive right in and have a go. So it's just, I found that I have learned a lot, particularly as a female in the industry. So, talking about leadership from a sort of different aspect than the traditional models that are out there, and the Tony Robbins sort of style of very intense, deification almost, and in his sort of 3-day courses. But it's writing gives you the power to reach more people. And so being able to craft the thoughts into something that's readable, that actually allows others to learn from it, it's fun, which, that's not for everyone, because I'm sure there are people out there going, I can't imagine anything worse. But I really enjoy having the power to share ideas and inspire other people through words. That's a really cool thing to be able to do. So I'm really enjoying being in that space, and just exploring what's possible, which is, I suppose, one of my life kind of mottos is what's possible, and let's see what's possible beyond that. A lot of people focus on what you can't do and limitations, and I'm all about exceeding and expanding any kind of boundaries that might have once fenced me in.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about today. Yeah, because definitely with the leadership especially, it's a huge topic indeed, and it's so broad nowadays. And sometimes it feels like, oh, almost everybody and their mama loves some leadership. It's like almost like a buzzword nowadays.
It is, yeah. No, not almost. I think it is. I think coach, mentor, leader, integrity, authenticity, all these things have become buzzwords. And so, we can get very jaded in listening to them. And that's where I kind of go that Tony Robbins sort of style of big and loud and fireworks. I think that's kind of fading now, because I think people see it for the show that it is, rather than the knowledge that it's imparting. And that's, I suppose, part of the difference that I want to bring is that I'm sharing knowledge. I don't necessarily need the fireworks, although if anyone wants to host fireworks for me, I'm more than happy to appear. But it's about actually giving to people something that they can use and they can value. I had a girlfriend who's read a couple of the anthologies I've contributed to, and she was really specific in complimenting me and saying that she could take all the names off all the chapters, read that book, and still pick my words, because I had such a very different style in that I was giving and I was sharing. I wasn't just throwing out buzzwords and trite phrases and kind of this, sort of guru spiritual kind of Instagram story. And in that sort of faux inspirational style, I was actually going step 1, step 2, step 3. This is what worked for me. And if you do this, this is the outcomes you will have. And the reason I wrote that is because I couldn't find those books for myself. One of my sort of passion points with my writing is when I was looking for that, I suppose, next evolution instead of just surviving what I had been through in my childhood, but actually learning to thrive and enjoy life. The whole just believe in yourself kind of phenomena, and I'm sure everyone's heard it and everyone will continue to hear it. But when you come from a background where there's no demonstration of that, into an industry where that's not something you're given, because no one told me they believed in me in the construction industry when I got there, it was the opposite. When you don't have any examples of what belief in yourself looks like, you don't know what that is. You don't know how to do that. And being that engineering mind, and kind of, I was like, okay, where's the process? Where's the how do I, A, B, C, follow this guideline, and at D, you have self-belief. And of course, that's unfortunately self-belief is not that simple, and there is no real, there's no manual to the brain necessarily, but there are avenues and there are pathways that you can take to get to self-belief. And so when I was looking for all that and couldn't find it, that's a part of what I wanted to contribute in my writing for those people who can relate to not having self-belief as an example, or not being demonstrated what self-belief is. I wanted to give them something that they could follow to go down the same path that I did, but shortcut all the detours and distractions that I found along the way, and all the, I suppose, the gurus that say they want to help you, but realistically probably just would like to take your money off you instead. Help avoid some of those pitfalls and shortcut their journey to self-belief, because I think as humans, that is something that I believe is one of the biggest gifts we can give to ourselves, is believing in ourselves.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. That self-belief indeed is something you need. And it's quite interesting because I can imagine, being a lady in the construction industry where, of course, catcalling and other sorts of shenanigans going wrong, going around, and guys being guys and all that wonderful, not so wonderful stuff going on. So from your perspective, in your own words, what are 3 things that make a great leader?
What are 3 things that make a great leader? Oh, only 3. Okay, I'll have to narrow it down. 3 things that make a great leader.
If you want to make 5, that's cool too.
Well, we've already talked about self-belief. You can't lead others if you don't have that sort of self-belief and confidence. So, that's the first one. The second one, I think, is the ability to communicate. And the ability to communicate is not telling people information. It is about talking to them in their language so that you ensure they understand what you're saying in their framework. And an example of that, I suppose, is risk management. I can talk at a corporate level on risk management and use words like control mechanisms and hierarchy of controls. And, the dude out there on the shovel digging the hole who's actually at risk is looking at me going, huh? Potentially he's never heard these words because that's not his frame of reference. So when talking to him about risk, I'm going to talk about, like, don't break a leg and try not to fall in because we'll all point and laugh. It's about framing it so the person receiving the message actually receives and understands the message, rather than telling things to people. And I see that as a distinct difference between management and leadership and people who want to be in charge but don't necessarily understand that to lead, you must allow the others to want to follow you. Which probably brings me to the third point, is that leading is not about being up the front with the trumpet and the fireworks going, look at me, I'm in charge. I think it's loud to say, I never know how to say it properly, is the art of war. He talks about the idea of a leader is not up the front, but he's actually at the back with the slowest person, encouraging them to catch up with the rest of the team who you've empowered to go on ahead because you trust them and you fulfilled their ownership requirements in order to do what they need to do while you manage the outside of the team atmosphere and arrangements. And I really, really found that very powerful. It's leadership is about clearing the way for others to perform at their best, whether that's work, career, sport, life, It's actually not about the person being in charge. And you can be the most junior person of the team, you can be the youngest person in a group and still actually be the leader if that's the function you're fulfilling.
Yeah, hat trick indeed, hat trick indeed. Yeah, 'cause so darn right. It's like, hey, you can't be all, all right, y'all, go ahead and do this thing. I'm just gonna chill in this corner office here. Or just me be
Yeah.
the foreman not doing anything. It's like, yep, gonna have this cup of coffee. Gonna hide the coffee cup, pull out the beer. Like, nah, I can't really be
Yeah, yeah.
doing
Oh, look, I've been on sites where that certainly happens. Absolutely.
that.
And that's okay if everyone's getting the beer at the end of the day, but when it becomes exclusive, that's not leadership. That's ostracization. I don't know if that's a word, but I've just made it one. It's exclusive. It's exclusionary. And if you're a leader, then those are the very things you're trying to prevent from happening within a group environment.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. Want that inclusion swag indeed. That's right indeed. Or as some say, you want that belonging swag. It's like, hey, hey, we're not just including you. It's like, hey, you belong here. Get over here. That's right indeed.
Yes, yes, very much. That's probably a more powerful word, is making sure that everyone belongs. Yeah.
Oh yeah, that's right. The Beck belongs, baby. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Yes, indeed. So since you've been on this wonderful tour and you've been guesting on all these wonderful podcasts, is there a question that you wish you'd be asked more often when you're on the guest side of the game on these shows?
No, because I really enjoy being asked questions I haven't been asked before and kind of challenging me to think in ways maybe I haven't thought or take me down paths I haven't really discussed. I don't get asked my life motto though. Everyone kind of, I don't know, or maybe not everyone, but I have a motto I really try to live by, and I don't ever get asked for that. What is my thing? What is my phrase? What's my hashtag? What's my tagline? So, because I always like to throw that one out, and it really does sum me up very well. And the other one, I suppose, is always like to leave some good advice, and like the best advice that I can give young people is always a fun one I like to answer. It usually gets a good round of applause, and I deliver that one at some point in an audience.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. So what is Becky's life motto?
I would rather die of thirst than drink from the cup of mediocrity.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. That's right, I'm talking about indeed. That's right, that's that hot fire indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Avoid the mediocrity, it's poison. That's right indeed. That's why them wonderful pharaohs in the Bible days had them cupbearers. It's like, oh, Pharaoh, don't drink this. It's mediocrity. You don't want this. It's poison.
Well, look, for some maybe it's a choice and they're happy with that. But for me, it was too much like settling. It was too much like giving in. It was too much like cruising through when I have so much more to give and achieve and to be.
Yeah, that's what I'm talking about indeed. That's right, that's what I'm talking about indeed. So since you're all about avoiding mediocrity like the plague and you got all this wonderful success, I'm pretty sure there's been some failures you had in life that actually led to all the success you have today. So what would you consider one of your biggest failures in life that actually ended up creating one of your biggest successes in life?
Good question. Now that's one I don't get asked often. And as the high achiever I am, I'm like, oh, failure. I do not like that word. And I kind of don't believe there's such a thing as failure. I think there is only learning, because if you didn't get it right the first time, you should have learned something to improve your next chance. As Edison said, I haven't failed 10,000 times. I found 10,000 ways for it not to work. And, generally that means one step closer to it working. But in terms of what you're asking, I think learning all the lessons of leadership early, I was very angry. And, you can probably say that's somewhat justifiable with the childhood I had and the treatment of being told you're never welcome and you don't belong and all those things. It made me very angry. So I was a very assertive young lady, to the point where perhaps the word aggressive was applied several times. And while it is true, had I been a man, I never would have been called aggressive. For a young lady, I was certainly very powerful in my output. Let's put it that way. And so I think learning to harness that, be a little bit more political, have more patience earlier on would have got me further quicker. That's not to say that I have any regrets, because the life path you have is the one you choose and the one you're meant to be on, and gets you to the place where you are of service, and I truly believe that. But I think failing to learn and really sticking to being that very assertive, to the point of angry young woman, I think that was something I could have learnt to manage a lot better and a lot easier, and given myself less anxiety about it too. Like, being angry all the time is exhausting to maintain. And so exactly. And anyone who has been through that knows exactly how exhausting it is to sustain that level of rage. And so I think being easier on myself earlier and allowing that to not be who I was, or a part of who I was, in a far quicker process would probably have been a lesson I'd love to share with people. And probably, if I would call it a failure, that would be an area that I failed in for longer than I probably needed to.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Powerful output. That's right. Powerful output indeed. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Ain't nothing wrong with a little aggression, as long as it's the good aggression, as in like, hey, like, hey, what you doing there, not being fair to other people, like, yeah, that kind of aggression.
And it was channeled into that sense of justice, and why aren't I treated equally? And I couldn't really understand why my gender was such a problem for other people. As I've grown older, of course, I understand more about society and the decades of and centuries behind it all. But as a young woman, I'm like, I don't use those bits to do my job. Why do they affect your view of my ability to do my job? So very, very confusing and frustrating. And you need to be a part of the change in order for the change to happen, which is another reason I kind of stuck around for 30 years. It's like, I can't encourage other women to be there unless I'm active in that space, making it better and easier and more comfortable for other young women to be there, because I know what it's like to not be welcome.
Yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. Mentor lighthouse swag. You love to see it. That's right indeed. That's right indeed. Lighthouse Becky goodness. That's what I'm talking about. Well, a fun question for you. So you have this wonderful book out called The Words of Becky, if I'm not mistaken, right?
I do.
Yes, indeed. So if it was a food, what would it be and why?
Oh, if it was a food, what would it be and why? It would be a cheese platter. A variety of exotic, high-quality, fine-tasting cheeses to nibble on at will, luxuriate in, savor, and create some positive memories around. I like that question too, and now I want some cheese.
That's right indeed. Say cheese.
Yes, there's a lot of jokes that could go with a cheese platter. I like that as well. I do like that as well, because there's always, at some point, you've got to ask, who cut the cheese?
That's right. Can't just have big old blocks on the platter. You gotta slice it. Oh, God. Yes, indeed. All the cheese and corn. You'll love it. Oh, man. Well, we're coming down to the magical question that every guest gets to receive, and that is, if you're to wake up tomorrow and you're 25 again, but you're still in 2022 with all of your knowledge and acquired experience, what advice would you give to yourself?
Oh, I'm sorry. There's a lot of excitement. I'll just be kind of like, fuck yeah. because I'd have all this knowledge, I'd have some of my youth and enthusiasm back. I'd have a couple more years to go and do some of the stuff that I didn't do when I had the chance to do. Because usually that question's asked if you're just back there again without. But if I've got all the knowledge and stuff that I've done already, party, right? Just game on. I would just, what can I do? How much trouble can I get into? How far can I push it? Let's rock and roll.
Oh yeah, that's right. There would be a lot of chocolate involved too, I imagine. That's right.
Well, a cheese. I'm a cheese girl, not so much chocolate. A lot of alcohol. I'm a Jack Daniels girl. So, I'd go back to those days when my liver could handle drinking more than 1 or 2 glasses a night and just, I'd throw myself in life and basically do it all again.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. That's right indeed. Building houses and breaking glasses. You'll love to see it. That's right indeed.
That's it. Yep. That sums it up pretty well, yeah.
Well, for those who have enjoyed the house you've built of great content and want to partake some of your metaphorical cheese by checking you out online and buying some copies of your magical books and keeping up with all the stuff that you're doing, what's the best way for folks to do so?
You can find me on the socials, Words of Beck, BEK with no C. I'm on Insta, Words of Beck, Facebook. You look for my writers page at Planet Beckstar, and my website www.wordsofbeck.com.au. And feel free to send me a message, say hi, and tell me how my words might have affected you, hopefully very positively, and inspired you to go and live your best life.
Oh yeah, that's right indeed. That's right. Check out all the Beck stuff today. We're gonna put the links to that all in the show notes indeed. That's right. She's actually the first one to refer to one of her books as cheese, so that means she is well loved across the globe, y'all. Because folks love themselves some cheese. Heck, we even say it before we take pictures if you're old school. So that's right, folks. So say cheese. Head over to her wonderful site and all of her stuff and buy copies of her marvelous books and future books indeed. So any parting words before we close up shop, Becky?
Just something I like to say to the young ladies that I mentor, and it applies to everyone out there, and it harks back to my stubborn days. If someone tells you you can't do something, do it twice and take photos.
How's it going, my friend? I'm so glad you made it to the end. That shows that you are an uncommon finisher, and I am so grateful for you sharing your ears, your attention, and your time to this wonderful podcast. To do something that'll take yourself to the next level, and for everybody else involved in this wonderful program, share it with at least 3 people in your network so that way more folks can be inspired to be their best.